We've already done adding and subtracting mixed numbers in sections 3, 5, and 3, 6. But in your future math classes, you'll see fewer and fewer mixed numbers and more improper fractions or just normal fractions. So I did want to spend a lesson just focusing on how to add and subtract fractions. Whether they're improper or not, it's not the point. But things that aren't mixed numbers. And you do find some of these in this section as well. So I wanted to focus on that. The first two steps are identical to steps we did in the mixed numbers category. That's to find the least common denominator. So our first goal will be to figure out what number can both denominators that we have go into evenly. And then make equivalent fractions by multiplying whatever is needed to make those two denominators equal. There will be some in this lesson where the denominators are equal to begin with, in which case you can skip these two steps. But there will also be some where you have to change the denominators. So always be on the lookout for that. Once you have the same denominators, you'll add or subtract the numerators. And you've got to remember our addition and subtraction rules. So commit these to memory. You will need these for the rest of your math lives. Addition: if the signs are the same, add the two numbers and keep their sign. If the signs are different, subtract the bigger one minus the smaller one, and then keep the sign of the bigger number. Subtraction: do keep, change, or keep, change, flip. Then after that, you've converted the problem into an addition problem, so you'll use the addition rules. So after you take care of the numerators, just like before, you'll keep the denominators the same. And if possible, you'll then reduce the fraction. So just to remind you, reduce. I know lots of people say simplify here, but the word is reduce. If I have something like 3 over 9, both of those numbers are divisible by 3, so I can just divide the top one by 3, divide the bottom one by 3, and I get a reduced form of that fraction. Okay, first few we have here are ones that have the same denominator. So this is 7/10 plus 6/10. Since I have the same denominator, I can go straight to step 3 where I just add these two together. 7 plus 6 is 13. I keep the denominator the same. And I cannot reduce that any farther because there's nothing that both 13 and 10 have in common. Now, I know all of our final answers when we were adding and subtracting mixed numbers had to be in mixed number form. For this lesson, I'm okay either way. If you want to leave it as an improper fraction, go for it. Or if you'd rather change to a mixed number, I'll certainly accept that too. We could change it to a mixed number by saying 10 goes into 13 one time, so that's our whole number, and the remainder would be 3, or the leftovers would be 3, so we put that in the numerator. So both of the forms of these answers are good. You can use either one. Number 2, the denominators are the same, so we go straight to adding the numerators. We're adding different signs this time, 5 plus negative 7. So the rule is to subtract them. 7 minus 5 is 2. And keep the sign of the bigger number, which is the 7, so it'll be a negative 2. Now this fraction we can reduce. These are both even numbers. They're both divisible by 2. So we'll divide the top by 2 and divide the bottom by 2. You will get plenty of credit if you leave the answer this way, but you'll lose at least a point, maybe more, depending on how much the problem is worth, if you leave it unreduced. Number 3, you still have the same denominator. This time we're adding numbers with the same signs, so we just add the two together, 5 plus 4, and keep the sign they have. So it's negative 9 over 6. And this also can be reduced because they're both divisible by 3. So we divide negative 9 by 3 and divide 6 by 3. And you can leave the answer just like that, or since it's improper, if you want to change it to a mixed number, you can. Just keep the negative out front, say 2 goes into 3 one time, then there'll be a remainder of 1 that goes in the fraction. So you can answer that either way. Okay, number 4, same denominator. And this is our first subtraction problem, so we've got to do keep, change, change. So 4 plus 6, I have a positive plus a negative. So the rule when I'm adding different signs is to subtract the two numbers, 6 minus 4, keep the sign of the bigger number, which is the 6, so it's negative 2 over 7. All right, now on the back, we are going to have to change denominators. I know. Gotta happen though. Okay, so as I look at number 5, I see, all right, these denominators are not the same, so I can't add as they are right now. I've got to change it so they have the same denominator. And the lowest common denominator between 5 and 3 would be 15. So to change 5 to a 15, I multiply it by 3. I have to do the same thing to the top and the bottom. 3 times 3 is 9. 5 times 3 is 15. To get 3 to be 15, I have to multiply by 5. Whatever I do to the top, I have to do the bottom. 1 times 5 is 5. 3 times 5 is 15. Now that they have the same denominators, I can combine them. So 9 plus 5 is 14. I keep the denominator the same. And there's no way to reduce that, so that's my answer. On number 6, we have different denominators, so we have to think what's the least common denominator. The smallest number that both 6 and 4 go into evenly is 12. So to turn 6 into a 12, I multiply by 2. To turn 4 into a 12, I multiply by 3. 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 3 is 12. Now we can add, since they have the same denominators. We're adding numbers of different signs, one negative, one positive. So I subtract the two numbers. 9 minus 2 is 7. And I keep the sign of the bigger number, which is the 9, so I keep it a positive 7. I keep the denominator the same, so my final answer is 7 over 12. Okay, number 7, we again have to find a common denominator. The lowest number that both 6 and 8 will go into evenly is 24. And 6 times 4 is 24. So I multiply the top and the bottom by 4. Give me negative 20 over 24. 8 times 3 is 24. So I multiply the top and bottom by 3. I get negative 3 over 24. So I'm adding two numbers that have the same sign, so I just add those two together, 20 plus 3, and I keep their sign. And that will reduce, and it's not an improper fraction, so that is our final answer. Okay, last one. Got to find a common denominator for 10 and 4. The smallest number both of them go into evenly is 20. But actually, let me pause. Before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and do my keep, change, change. You can do it later. It's not essential you do it first. That's just what I prefer. But we do keep, change, change. So like I said, 20 is our least common denominator. So I'll multiply this top and bottom by 2. Negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. 10 times 2 is 20. This needs to be multiplied by 5. Negative 3 times 5 is negative 15. 4 times 5 is 20. Since I'm adding numbers of the same sign, I add them together and keep their sign. I will accept this answer. It can't be reduced. It is improper, but I'm okay with that. But you can also change it to a mixed number. Just bring the negative and put it out front. 20 goes into 21 one time with 1 left over. So both of these answers would be fully accepted.